This is wide angle. Guys, come. Let's do this. Is this here level 3? Wait. Right. No. Why nobody sits on the I thought it was good. I want to stick that. My name is here. Yeah, go ahead. Carlos wants his name. Carlos, do you want to introduce yourself? Alrighty. Welcome guys to Ruby Tuesday number 55. Give a big round of applause. Yeah, to make it here. I know the attendance is way less today because you guys didn't come. You guys just watched stream. So yeah, we are. How's your Merdeka weekend? Did you guys go anywhere? Long weekend? Well, I know there's a long weekend coming, but you guys go over weekend. What long weekend? It doesn't apply to us. we don't have the Malaysian holiday schedule. Anyways, if you have a laptop, you need Wi-Fi. This is the Wi-Fi password and the Wi-Fi SSID. This is the one in caps, not the one in lower caps, yeah? So, this event is proudly brought to you by Surya Labs. Yay! They sponsor the food and they hosted us here in this wonderful place. And we are the KL Ruby Brigade. So, that's us there. Yeah, again, Wi-Fi. I know Jerry, right? Sorry, Jerry is here for the first time. Hey! We are here for the first time. And, sorry, again? Amanda is here for the very first time. So, Carlos. No. Carlos. Are you first time? No, right? Yeah, I think I've seen you before. So we have 3 first timers here. So please welcome them. Yeah, if you guys don't know about us, we usually hang out at the Facebook group at facebook.com/group/KLXRE. We also have a website called rubybrigade.my that redirects to the Facebook group. We are also at meetup.com, so if you want to stay up to date with our meetups, so go to meetup.com/ruby-malaysia. It will also include the Penang meetup. So yeah, if you just want to stay in touch with us and also follow along with our events, just sign up yourself with meetup.com ruby/-malaysia. We also have a GitHub account at github/klxrb. We also have a Slack called RubyMine, and also if you want to get yourself invited, go to this link here, rubybrigade.my/Slack_invite, and you can invite yourself there. Now, without further ado, I am Jimmy, so I will be your host today and most of other days. So please remember to introduce yourselves to your neighbors and name tags. I guess everyone has that. So at the end of this, we have this segment called the Ruby Tuesday. So first timers take note. So what we do is that we will just open the floor for anyone who has any tips to want to show. Yeah, just bear in mind there will be a session for Ruby tips afterwards. So if you want to present something, get ready, and I will call upon you guys when it's time. Yes, announcements. RubyConf Live is happening, obviously, is at 25th and 26th October at KLCC. So if you haven't bought tickets yet, please go and buy, because yes, student and normal tickets are on sale now, but we have gotten a special discount code from you guys today. So if you go to buy that ticket and use this discount code, one day sit. Who come up? Did you come up? Not me. One day sit and you get the early bird price for a discount. So starting at 9 PM, so another 1 hour. I don't know who set up the timing thing. So again, starting at 9 p.m. for 24 hours. So if you want to buy the RubyConf ticket anyways, this is a way to buy it cheaper now. Okay, so one day safe. Just go and buy the tickets with this discount code. And yeah, visit rubyconf.my to get the tickets. First, before we go into the talks, let's do some hiring shoutouts. Rapid River is hiring. Carlos, you want to do the intro for your company? No. So we are a consultancy company. We consult and provide technical expertise for our clients. We are hiring Ruby on Rails developer and also data engineers. We are fully flexi-time company, so you can decide where and when you want to work. Yeah, we are just next door at Block A. If you are interested, please come and talk to me, or you get more info. You can go to our website, rrsoft.co/careers, and check us out. Next, we have Caterspot. Just want to do a shout out for them, but I guess Camelia, Camelia, you want to do a shout out? Yes.
Hey guys, basically Caterspot is an online B2B food delivery business. We operate currently in Singapore and Hong Kong. And the idea is to open and launch a tech center here in Kuala Lumpur. And we're starting with logically a head of engineering to help us build a team here as well. And the idea is to also get on board 5 to 6 full stack engineers within the next 3 months. Hopefully we're able to get the team together.
Awesome, awesome. How do we get in touch with you?
Alright, so I can leave business cards.
Sure. You can
for the stream, shout out.
For the stream also, if there's anything, you can just shout out to the stream.
What do you do the stream?
We're live!
We're live! I can also help you posting our Facebook group.
I can also distribute it around.
Yes. There it is.
No, show it for longer.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, just pause the video, right? Okay. Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Okay, so now without further ado, let's go to our first talk. I will be talking about Hyperloop, and also Tristan will be talking about tracking pixel later. Okay? Yeah. Okay, cool. Let me set my thing up. Oh, good. Okay.
Do you want a smaller chair? Maybe we can use the chair and the chair. You need to speak more consistently. You can use this one.
Okay. Am I blocking the screen if I sit here? Can you guys see? Okay. Right. So I am gonna talk about Hyperloop and HyperStack today. So what is Hyperloop? If you guys remember,
Jimmy, what's Hyperloop?
Yeah, what is Hyperloop? So if you guys remember a project called React.rb, do you remember that? React.rb? No, nobody remembers that. Okay. So it was called React.rb, but they rebranded it and repackaged it into Hyperloop. So what is React.rb? Is basically...
Which came first, React.js or React.rb?
Of course, React.js. So React.rb is a Ruby encapsulation for the... no, it's a transpiler. So it's a Ruby transpiler that transpile Ruby code into JavaScript. So basically, you can write React using Ruby, right? It's basically under the hood is using Opal. But yeah, we're not getting into that today. So yeah, it was called React.rb previously, and yeah, it's a web tooling for developing modern single-page applications. It is touted as the complete isomorphic Ruby framework. Isomorphic being that you can use the same code client-side and server-side, so one file you can serve both sides. And yeah, they are renaming it to HyperStack soon because they don't want to be confused by this. Because if you search Hyperloop, this is the only thing that comes out, right? So they are rebranding it to HyperStack. Actually, I am speculating that that's the main reason because of SEO, but yeah, who knows? That is Hyperloop One, the supersonic. Is it supersonic?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, one of Elon Musk's, thingy. So yeah, that's the Hyperloop.
Supersonic because you travel through a vacuum.
Yeah. It's you
With
try.
a natural tube.
Yeah. So the tube will be vacuumed, so you can
Or faster, yeah.
We are not talking about that. So, wait. Okay. So basically, the whole framework is built upon 5 different elements. So they are called components, operations, models, policies, and stores. We'll see a little bit more about that, and also I'll show you guys a demo afterwards. But basically, if you are familiar with React, components is a React component. Stores is also a React store. It's just a Flux. It's equivalent of a Flux store. So, and again, under the hood is a Flux store. So it's kind of like, you guys familiar with Redux? Yeah, it's something like that. Redux is an implementation of a Flux store. So this is just like their implementation of a Flux store. So yeah, we have operations, models, and policies, which we'll see a little bit more later. So this is the diagram, the fancy diagram. So you can see how all the 5 elements are placed in the stack. So at the bottom, of course, we have the server stack, and also on the top is the client stack. In this example of the diagram, we are using Rails. But nothing can stop you from using Sinatra or anything like that, or even just embedding the Hyperloop.js library directly onto the page. So it's flexible that way that you can either use it on its own, you can use it through a gem, or through any of your favorite web framework, or like in our case. Here it's Rails. So on top of that, there's policies. Policies basically controls the access from the client side to the server side objects. So it basically works like Pundit. You create a policy for each of the models that you have opened up for the client, and you tell that okay, only logged in user can access this model, for example. Models and operations sits in between because those are the isomorphic elements. Models is actually just a normal active record model, and later on I will show you how to just turn that into like a Hyperloop model. Operations, think of it as controllers. Yeah, just leave it at that. Stores, components, these are kind of the similar ideas on React as well. We have stores, we have components. So yeah, this is a code example of how a Hyperloop component looks like. As you can see, everything here is Ruby. You just define a class and inherit the Hyperloop component. And yeah, here you can see that it also has a render function. Like all React components, you need a render function. So the render function will return you a single element with like unlimited amount of child inside. In this case, it returns a UL. Yeah, it returns a UL. So if you specify something inside the parameters, that will be the root element. Otherwise, you have to wrap the return value in one root element. So basically, if you are familiar with React, this is all.
How do you wrap it?
I'll show you later. But basically, it's like it's just a block. You can just define a UL block and you just wrap everything inside one block. Or it can be a div block. It can be a UL block. It can be any block. So where was I? Yeah. So that's. Everything you see here is just, if you're familiar with React, this is going to be familiar to you. But the idea is that even if you are not familiar with React, Learning it from here will give you a pretty good head start and pretty quick head start as well into building actual React components. But yeah, we'll just come to the demo later and see more of this. We have operations, and you can see here, operations allows you to specify the steps of your operations. You see there's a step block here. You can create multiple steps. So what you can do is that you can define, say for example, when you save a to-do list. So step 1 is to save the record. Step 2 is to say increment the number of total list number if you have something there. And third, maybe pop up an alert saying, hey, I'm saved. So each of these steps waits for the dispatch for the previous step. So this is all done for you already. You don't need to do anything special to wait for the dispatch and to wait for the promise to resolve. So yeah, it's out of the box. This is a Hyperloop model. A Hyperloop model isn't actually a class you inherit. So what you do is, which I'll show you later, is that you just take whatever active record model you have, and you can expose that as a Hyperloop model. And the way you do that is just to move the model into a specific folder inside the Hyperloop folder, and it opens it up to the client. And here you can see that this is just the code is exactly the same. So this is just a normal active record class, active record model. And here you can see that inside the component, I can actually use active record functions to it. So I did, like in this case, I've defined a scope that says that in catalog means where catalog is true, and book.inCatalog, which is just simple Rails command. You can actually do that. Book.inCatalog.each. This is just plain Ruby to you, to us, and you can get the record, and then you can actually use it in this way. So this is a Hyperloop model. Hyperloop policy is again something that isn't really that important if you are just playing around with it. By default, in development mode, everything is open so that you can just play around with all the models without defining exact policies that you need to restrict. But in this case, you can see an example here. For book policy, you are allowing change only when the acting user is an admin. Yeah, this is a way that you can define policy. Now, okay, store very quickly. The store is just like a Flux store. So imagine this is a data store that you use to power your React app. That's the best way I can put it. But yeah, again, I guess it makes more sense in the demo. So yeah, let's go to the demo. So I will do a quick demo hopefully from scratch and not to take too long. Huh?
How is the model different than the regular active record?
It's the same.
Nothing is different, right?
Nothing is different.
Okay.
Code-wise, nothing is different. You just need to move it in a specific folder.
Okay, because you mentioned it's a Hyperloop model, but it's Loop.
Yeah, so it is the Hyperloop model, but what it does is that it actually overrides the active record model to provide a few like hooks and overrides to make it work.
Okay.
Okay, I might not have time to go all the way from the beginning, but let's see how far we can go. Maybe I should start here. Wait. How do I do this? What? Carlos, why is this not working?
I don't know. Is it a clean room?
Ah, okay. So I've jumped ahead and started off with this application, this project that has already, I've installed Hyperloop Gem on it. I have set up the, I have run the command called the Hyperloop install. So just a quick info before I go there is that this is the only thing I did. So I went to the installation, went through the installation steps. So with Ruby on Rails, so this is what I did. I just added the gem into the gem file. I did bundle install, and I did Rails G Hyperloop install. Yeah. So what it does is that it creates a whole, it creates the app Hyperloop folder with these 4 different folders inside. That's it. That's what I've done. And obviously, I have to do a few things here. I have to add this line into the application.js file, and it's all set up to go. Also, what I did was, let's see whether I can actually start this thing. Yeah. So what I did was, I've taken the To-Do MVC. Are you guys familiar with the project? So this project is called To-Do MVC. To-Do MVC is kind of like a benchmarking framework. Yeah, so what it does is that it provides a set of instructions for you to implement a to-do list. And what you do is you pick whatever framework you use, you like, you follow the instructions, and that's your basic guideline of comparison. So what they did was they created a whole bunch of projects to make the same to-do list, so that you can compare between like Backbone and Angular and Vue.js and everything to see how different implementation is done, but building the same app, so to speak. So I've done that, and what I did also is okay, so this is this. Oh wait, it's this one. 1 second. I probably should increase the text size, right? Okay. Okay, I need to restart this. To close this. Any questions so far? No. So this is the to-do list in static HTML. So what I did was I just copied this HTML and put it here. So I'm actually just trying to make crap. How is this? No. Okay. Whoa, no. Yeah, essentially I'm trying to make this. I'm trying to build this. This into this. Okay. Now, what you're seeing here is this component. So let me start showing the components. Hyperloop component, to-do list. So I've created this component. You can see here, this is it's a very simple component that renders a div, and inside is to-do list. And let me just show you a quick example of how I can turn a HTML into a Hyperloop component. So I'm gonna take the HTML from here and just start to copy things in, for example, to do app. Should I? Yeah, sure. So let's say I'm trying to convert this HTML into the basically this is Hyperloop component. So I'll just remove everything. I'm just gonna put it here. So section class. What I do is I just do section class to do app. So to write the child component, you just wrap the child inside a block. So what is the next one? So the next one is header, right? So header class header do. So and then there's a h1 to do. To-dos, and the next is an input to do. Placeholder is needs to be done, and there's no autofocus thing in React, so that's just not relevant. So once I did that, come back here. And I should have the to do. Yeah, so that's just how easy it is to convert like HTML. Like if you have an existing page, existing app, you can very easily actually convert it into a component. So I'm gonna spare you the agony of watching me write everything, so I'm gonna skip ahead, and what I've done is just continuing what I did, and I've written out the list there. You can see that there's a list and there's checkbox and everything, and then there's a footer, right? So I'm gonna skip ahead until that point, which is here. So by the way, you can set up hot reload as well. So there's a Opal hot reload gem that once you set it up and make sure it runs properly, you can just do hot reload. So instead of like me, yeah. So this is React. Hyperloop component. This is HTML. So technically, I've transferred all my styles and my HTML here, so I'm gonna remove this and just focus on this. Yeah. Now let's see how the code looks like. So in here, you can see this is the main component class. Like we have a section that encapsulates the header, the list, and the footer. And so what is this? This is just another component that you can just embed easily. So all you do is that you create another component, say for header, and you just write, you just separate it out into different components, so it's easier for you to manage. So here you can just create a new component by just creating a new class, extending the Hyperloop component, and you can do the same thing here, just render and return the render, that's it. Same thing for the footer here. Footer is a bit more complicated. So you can see here the UL is done this way, the div, the input, the label, everything is done like that. And the footer, we have footer, span, li, a. So nothing out of the ordinary if you already know HTML, if you already know like say React, because it supports all the HTML elements like div, li, the footer, section, anything. So now we will want to start to put some functions in. So I think the first function I did was to actually start just by what did I do? Okay, let's start to introduce the Hyperloop model. So remember just now that a Hyperloop model is just a normal active record model. So what it does is, what you can do is that you can just create a Hyperloop model by generating the the active record model. Just let me check here quickly. I think it's this one. Sorry if I'm jumping around. So yeah. So at this point of my implementation, I have yes, okay. So what I did was I have created a model called the to do. Yeah. So, and where is this model? This model is in apps Hyperloop models to do. Yeah. As you can see, this is just a plain old simple Rails model, active record model. And I mean, since Rails 1.5, you have this application record class. So you have to copy this as well into the Hyperloop model to get it to work. But before that, it's just normal. It's just the model which extends directly from active record base. So here it's just a very simple Rails model, and already what I can do is that I can do this in my component. You can see here this is my footer. And my footer has a span that says there's how many items in my to-do list. And the way I'm doing this is just call upon the model.count. The same way that you can do it with any active record model. So what happens here? So just remember that I haven't done anything at the top yet. I'm just focusing on the footer, and you can see that there's 3 items. And it's actually reading the database record. So one thing that I've failed to do, but the tutorial has indicated is possible, is that it's supposed to be able to pick up changes from the database itself, because what powers this behind the scene is WebSocket. So what happens is that if let's say I open, maybe we can see it a little bit more. So basically, it allows you to trigger changes and refreshes throughout your application connections. So technically, according to the tutorial, you can create something inside the database, and it's supposed to update itself here. It's supposed to. But I couldn't get it to work. But generally, you see that this is actually working. But you have to refresh. I pressed refresh. I refreshed. You shouldn't need to do that. That's what I'm saying.
Did you wire the
Hmm?
Did you wire up the WebSocket part?
It is wired up properly. So if I triggered something from this component to increase or to create an object, it actually propagates throughout the open connection. But if I do it from a Rails console, I think what it does is it doesn't recognize it as an active socket connection or session. So
You have a different process in your console. So
yeah, probably that's the problem. But it saves the queue, the open connections inside the database. So if I were to implement this one, I should just blast out throughout all the connections, right? So but
yeah, probably you need to wire it to the watcher.
yeah, the thing is, I shouldn't need to do any of this. It should just work, but it doesn't. So anyway, so yeah, you can see how the normal you can turn a normal active record model into just a Hyperloop model, just like that. Now I'm gonna show you again, just jumping through things quickly, so can save time. So I'm going to work on this middle, this middle part here, where I will start to put in some events handler, so like click and toggle and things like that. So let's see how it's done. So what I've done here is, let's go back to the list. Yeah, let's go back to the list. So here, I have changed the middle section to actually read from database. So you can see here in line 7, can you guys see? You should be able to see, right? So in line 7 here, I'm actually reading from the database. So to do dot each, and each of the item, I'm rendering a component called list item. So what is list item? List item is just another component that I've done. And here, you can see that I have added something onto the checkbox here. So this is an event handler. Now, what you can just do is that this is a checkbox, and of course, whether it's checked or not depends on the items completed. So this is all done for you automatically. I have not written a single line of code to actually enable this thing to happen, like the item dot completed. So this is just getting it from directly from Active Record. And I've added a click handler to just say params item dot update, which is again a normal like method for Active Record. So what happens here is that when I click on this toggle checkbox here, which is a round thingy, it should update this to, of course, if it's not completed, it will be updated to complete. And what I should see is that because the class of the item is based on the completed state, I should have a completed class. A completed class looks like this with the strike through, and a non-completed is the one without the strike through. So let's refresh and see whether it works. No, it works.
Does it?
But does it? So yeah, okay, so you can see here this is actually reading from the database. This wood is the one that we just added. And if I click, it's already, it's updating here, and it's already saved in the database. So let's go back and address our question just now. Does it propagate? So it propagates nicely, like so. So yeah, it just works. Okay, next, what's on the list? I want to put some routing. So if you guys are familiar with React routing, this is exactly the same mechanism, or almost the same syntax. So again, I'm gonna skip ahead to do the routing. Hopefully, I'm way over time. Okay, so where is my routing? What? Sorry, routing. So to do routing, you have to do a couple of things. So the first thing is change your component from Hyperloop component to Hyperloop router for the root component. So in this case, I've changed the main to-do list app from a Hyperloop component to a Hyperloop router. The second thing is change the render to route, and then you can start putting in your routes. So what is this? So this is just a React route kind of a definition. So for the URL structure that looks like this, in this case it has exactly match / something mount this component. So in the component called list, I have added this to the scope. So just now was to do dot each. Now I'm trying to do Okay, I'm trying to do this, right? This filter at the bottom. So the filter has all active and completed. So I'm just trying to access this list. Completed and active, which again is just like the normal, it's the normal active record scope. So you can obviously do to do dot complete and to do dot active. So here I'm just doing to do dot something, and this something depends on my route. So in this case is a parameter that I've captured that is going to be named scope, because here is called scope. Wait. Because here I've named it scope. If you name it something else, you have to use something else. I can capture the scope, the parameters by just using match dot params. Okay. So anyway, this just becomes either to do active or to do send active or to do send completed. Make sense, right? Okay, so and at the footer, you have to change the link from a normal A to either use link or nav link. So nav link just gives a few more features, like for example, it automatically adds a class to the nav link if it matches the link that you want to. So in this case, like I wanted to highlight itself, have a selected state, has selected class whenever the link is active. So it's provided here. You can just say active class, whatever class. That's it. So so again, let me just spin up the app, and after this, I'm gonna just jump to the end, just because we have run out of time. Yeah, so here, active, completed, active, completed. So this is just React routing. Now, okay, again, let me just go to the completed state, which is this. And what I've done in between is that I have basically created the function to add in new items, and also delete the items, and also edit the item when I double click on it. Okay, so and this is the completed app. I have to reload here as well, just so that you can see it working. Okay, so
What is a simple for stuff?
where?
Bottom left.
Oh, this is the template link. Why is it? Let me just stop it. I think it's trying to recompile, which is something that I want to touch later after I show that I finally have a presentation that I have working demo. Okay. Yeah, you can see that it's trying to. Oh yeah, here we go. So this is the completed app. So this is what we have seen so far. As you can see, this is a React routing. There's no reloading of the page. So if I can delete, I can delete. If I want to edit, I double click. I can edit like that. Uncheck, check. So you can see everything is reflected here. New item, and that's it. Oh, and clear completed, and it will be clear. So there is a tutorial that runs through exactly the same process, although I think I've completed more stuff than it. But you can find this tutorial online, or at the end of after this presentation, I'll push this onto my GitHub account. I will share it in the Facebook group, and you can take a look at that. So let's summarize what we just did. So we just did a Hyperloop implementation with Rails. And what do I think of it? I think that it's basically very easy. So the tutorials are very nice to learn from. They're quite complete, and the documentations are sufficient. And there's a lot of samples app that allows that they have linked in the website. And obviously, from front end to back end, I only use Ruby. I've not written a single line of JavaScript, and also the operations and the models are isomorphic. So I basically just maintain one single copy of the code. And there's an out-of-the-box Pundit-style operation, and also server-side rendering. I forgot to show you that. This is all done with server-side rendering. Yeah, so you don't need to handle that. It's out of the box, and the contributors are quite active as well. So they've been working on it for quite some time, but obviously they need more people to help them. Which comes to my next point: why you should probably not use Hyperloop. Especially in production for now. The thing is, it's very low in adoption rate. I don't see anybody talking about it in the forums, in Stack Overflow. If you run into problems and you try to search, of course, the Virgin Hyperloop one will come up first. And then you start to type, okay, Ruby Hyperloop, this problem. And it's almost non-existent, the Stack Overflow issues. Which means to me that the adoption is quite low.
No, it means that it always works. People never
it always works. It always works.
You don't need to ask questions.
Maybe.
Why are you so negative?
Okay. Probably that's the case. Yeah. Because I have run into problems. I have tried to search and I can't find any solution. So unless you're willing to, dig into the code and figure out what's wrong, or what caused it to break, then yeah, you're kind of out of luck that way. Another obviously is a framework lock-in. If you decided one day to go back to React, you can't copy and paste the code there, or you can convert it back to React and stuff like that. But yeah, you can't copy it anywhere else. So and you're locked into this framework. But that's that's the decision you have to make, right? Like if let's say you want to use a framework like Rails, you basically are locked in a way. But yeah, if you're afraid of this, then probably this is not for you. But of course, the alternative will be like the direct implementation, like using React directly, using Webpacker, and using all this JavaScript mumbo jumbo.
It's not so advanced because naming things is one of the two difficult problems in computing, and they have done it twice. So they have been very busy.
Yes. So yeah, I feel like to really use this, to really capitalize on all the powers of React, you have to learn React anyways, yeah, to kind of understand or to use it to its full potential. The tutorials and the documentation will definitely carry you a long way. But I feel like, say for example, you wanted to use a Node library that you found as very useful, but yeah, you might need to learn a bit more how to work with npm packages and whatnot in the first place, so that you can use it. So, but the good news is, if you already done that, if you're already a Rails developer and a React developer, JavaScript developer, this might be something that you can consider, because yeah, it's something very simple and easy to use, and also easy to teach, to train people. Fourth thing is that of course you can see that just now every time I reload the page, if I'm not using hot reload, sometimes you cannot, because you've added some new libraries and or components or that you need to reload the whole thing, not just the component. That you refresh and then take some time to transpile the whole thing. I have not shown you this, but the first time you run Rails generate or Rails install, the Hyperloop install, it actually takes like maybe 2 minutes to compile the first like pack together, and so that you can load it. So this affects development time, obviously, not like production time. But yeah, it's an extra layer of transpiling. And again, yeah, bugs. I found the bug where the tutorial said that you can do Rails console and create items in the database, and it will reflect on the app, but it doesn't work. So is it a bug? I don't know. But yeah, it feels a little bit unpolished at this point. But then again, yeah, that's how all open source project is and goes through. It requires a lot of love from the community and a lot of adoption from the community. So yeah, don't shun away from them if you're afraid of this. But yeah, think a bit if you are deciding to do this in production. So that's it. These are the resources that you can find about Hyperloop, which is their own website because you can't find anything else anywhere. And thanks. Any questions? Oh, okay, great, thanks.